Hey guys, I'm Vijaya. So today in this session, we are going to learn about SQL Server identity column value. So identity column of a table is a column whose value increases automatically. The value in an identity column is created by the server itself. So a user generally cannot insert a value into an identity column. Identity column can be used to uniquely identify the rows in the table. And this is the syntax of creating identity column. So it takes two parameters. The first one is the seed and the second one is the increment. So seed is starting value of a column. That means seed is the starting value of a column and the default value is 1. And the next is increment. Incremental value that is added to the identity value of the previous row that was loaded and the default value is 1. That means it increment by 1. So note that seed and incremental values are optional. And if you don't specify the value, they both have a default value of 1. So how to supply explicitly value in an identity column. So to explicitly supply value for an identity column in SQL Server, you must use the set identity underscore insert command. So by default, SQL Server automatically generates value for identity columns and rejects user supplied values unless the setting is enabled. So these are the steps to explicitly insert value in an identity column. So there are 3 steps. First one is the enable identity underscore insert. Second one is the execute the insert statement, and the third one is disable identity underscore insert. So let's see the first one. So here, enable identity underscore insert. So turn on the identity underscore insert option for the specified table where you want to insert an explicit value. So this is a code set identity underscore insert and the table name which you want to and on. So set identity underscore insert table name on. And the next one is to execute the insert statement with a column list. So use an insert into statement that explicitly lists all columns, including the identity column, and a specified value you want to insert for it. And this one is the code insert into table name. Here you can give whatever column name you want to. This one is the ID column name, and this is another column, and this is also the another column. So values, the first one is the explicit ID value. Okay. And the next one is the next column value, and this is the third column value. And third one is the disable identity underscore insert. So after completing the necessary insertions, turn off the identity underscore insert option to restore the default auto generation behavior. And this is the code set identity underscore insert table name off. So this script uses a relatable local library system analogy to clearly explain SQL Server identity concepts. It covers the standard automatic ID generation, how to override it using identity underscore insert for VIP members, and how to capture the newest ID using scope underscore identity for instant checkouts. Crucially, it also explains the output clause detailing how output inserted dot member ID acts as a net to catch multiple newly generated IDs at once by accessing SQL Server's temporary inserted member table. So here in this script, we are going to use the library database which we have created in our previous video. So let's select it. So here in the library database, we are going to create the table library members. And this one is the first example of identity. And here I have written the comment so that you can understand it clearly that what actually this code is doing. So the first one is the identity, the automatic library card. So when a new reader signs up, the librarian doesn't invent a random number for them. The library software automatically generates the next available member ID. That means it automatically creates the member ID. You don't have to insert that ID manually. So here we are creating the table library members. In the library members table, we are having 3 columns: member ID, full name, join date. And here you can see that in member ID, we have defined the identity column, and here it will start from 1000, that is the seed value, and it increment by 1. And here we have created the primary key constant. So it starts at 1000 and goes up by 1. And the next column is the full name and the join date. And here we are using the default constant get date. So the get date function returns the current database system date and time in a year, month, date, hour, minute, second format. So we will see all these things in my upcoming videos. Okay. So now let's create this table first and run it. Oh, so there is an already object named library members. That means we have already defined it, the table. So now go to the database folder, in the library database, in the tables, and here we have already created the library members. So let's first delete it. Okay. Now it's gone. Just refresh it. And again you can check it. The tables folder, the system tables. Now here you can see that our library members table has gone because I have already created it earlier. Now let's create it again. Okay. Now we created the library members table again. Now go here in the library database, refresh it in the tables folder. Just refresh the tables folder. Now here you can see that our table is created. Review that represent to database object dot library members. Okay. Now let's check it. Okay. Now here this is the structure of the table. We didn't insert any data right now. So let's put the data. So here the librarian just enters the name and the database makes the member ID. So for here we don't have to give the member ID data and the join date because it is the by default get date, system date and time. And here the member ID is the identity column, so we don't need to insert value for 10 also. So insert into library members only full name and the values is the Peter Parker with the Mary Jane. So let's insert this data. Execute it. 2 rows refactored. The selected data to see that our data is successfully inserted. Yes. So here you can see that we didn't insert any data for member ID and the join date. So here the member ID first start from 1000. Okay. So for Peter Parker, the member ID is 1000 and this is the system date and time. Now for Mary Jane, it increment by 1. That means 1001. So this is the use of the identity column. Okay. So here we have already checked that IDs 1000 and 1001 are auto generated. Okay. So here this one is the second example of identity underscore insert. Now here keeping the legacy VIP card. That means, for example, the mayor comes into the library. Okay. So they have an Asian library card with a number 1 from to 40 years ago. Now you are moving to a new software system, but the mayor insists on keeping the original member ID 1. Now you have to override the auto generator. That means you have to tell the SQL, wait, I need to type this specified ID manually. Okay. That means manually you want to insert a specified ID. So to insert that, you have to first set identity underscore table name, the table which you want to set the identity underscore insert on. So here we want to set it for library members. So set identity underscore insert library members on. So let's select the data and execute it. Now here our command completed successfully. Okay. Now you can explicitly provide the member ID 1. Okay. Now here you can provide the member ID 1. So insert into library. Now let's first check the data. So here we don't have any one member ID because here we have created the identity column, and if we don't provide that value, then it will increment from 1000, 1001, 1002. But here we want to explicitly supply the value for member ID. So we have the set identity underscore insert library members on. Okay. So let's insert this data, insert into library. And here this is the column name, member ID, full name, and the join date. Now here we have provided the join date. So the value of member ID is 1, full name is Mayor Norman Osborne, and the join date is 85/4/12. Okay. So insert the data. So one row is affected. Now select it. Now here you can see that the member ID 1 is inserted on the top because here we have defined the primary key in SQL Server, a primary key. So here we have defined for member ID column is primary key. So a primary key arranges data by automatically creating a cluster index. So what is cluster index? We will see all these things in my upcoming videos. Okay. So now let's understand it that why the ID 1 is coming at the top of the result. So here cluster index works physical sorting. So a cluster index physically sorts and stores the actual rows of data in the table on the hard drive based on the primary key values. So here by default it arranges the data in ascending orders. That means it sorts this numerical value in ascending order from lowest to highest. So here you can create one cluster index per table. That means the data rows can only be stored in one physical order on the disk. That's why a table can have only one cluster index. So why it's happening? So here you can see at the result that here physical sorting is happening in real time. So here we have an existing records of Peter Parker ID 1000 and Mary Jane ID 1000. So here we have set identity underscore insert table name on. That means here we want to manually insert the data for member ID. So even though Mayor Norman Osborn was inserted last, chronologically he appears first in the result set because member ID is our primary key. So the database didn't just add ID 1 to the bottom of the list. It immediately took that new row and physically reorganized the table on the disk to place it at the very top, ensuring the data remains strictly in sequential order. That means it starts from 1, then 1000, then 1001. Okay. So now that's the reason that why the member ID 1 is displayed at the top of the result. So after manually inserting the data, you have to again set it off. Okay. So this is the code to set the identity underscore insert table name of. That means here you are going to of this insert identity underscore insert. So execute it. So our command completed successfully. That means now the auto generating is going to happen. After setting this data, set identity underscore insert library members of, you again don't allow to insert the manually data for member ID. Okay. So that is the use of the identity underscore insert and identity underscore insert table name of. So the next one is the scope underscore identity. That means the instant book checkout. And it is the real world scenario. For example, a student walks in and he registers for a brand new library card and immediately wants to check out a textbook. So you need to grab the ID the system just created for them, so you can link it to the book they are talking. So for this, we are creating the table borrowed books. And this table, we are defining the three columns: checkout ID, member ID, and book title. So for checkout ID, here we have again defined the identity column, and the seed value is 1 and increment value is 1. And here again we have defined the primary key. Okay. So let's create this table first. Here our command completed successfully. That means our table is created. Now let's see the structure of the table. Select star from, select star from borrowed books. Okay, the structure of the table is created. Now here we are going to declare a variable. So now for this example, the first step is we are going to register the new student. So we are going to insert into library members. The column is full name and the values is Miles Morris. So let's first see what the data we are having this table. So here in the table, we are having the three member ID 1000 and 1001. So let's insert this data for Miles Morales. So here we are only going to define the value for this column full name because the member ID is the identity column and the join date is the get date is the system date and type. So we don't have to define value for this both columns. Okay. So now let's insert this data. One row is affected. And in the second step, we are going to grab the specified member ID that was just printed for Miles Morales. Okay. So here we are going to declare a variable at the rate new student card ID. So here this is the declare keyword and this is the variable. So in SQL, if we want to declare the variable, we are going to use the at the rate. Okay, at the rate, and this is the variable name at the rate student card ID, and then the data type. Here we are going to use the in data type, and we are going to set this variable value into scope underscore identity. Okay. So here we are going to declare a variable. After declaring the variable, we are going to insert the data into the borrowed tables. And after that, we are going to select the data from both this table. So here, all this statement we are going to execute at once only. So what we have done here, we are declare a variable at the rate new student card ID. This is the variable to store the ID for Miles Morales, okay? And the data type is int. So here after declaring it, we are going to set this variable for scope underscore identity, okay? So in SQL, if you want to declare the variable, then in the variable name, at the first you are going to define the at the rate, okay? So at the rate new student card ID, this is the variable declaration, okay? This is the declared keyword, and here we are going to set this variable value to scope underscore identity. And in the third step, we are going to use that exact ID to check out this book. So now we are going to insert into borrowed books, member ID and book title. For member ID, we are using this variable. We just declare it and the rate new student card ID and the book title is Advanced Physics Volume 1. And in the next step, in the fourth step, we are going to select this data from both this table using the member ID equals to at the rate new student card ID. Okay. So we are going to execute this code at once only. Okay. So from here, from the declared keyword, this is a declared statement, select it and execute it. So now here you can see that new student Miles Morales was successfully registered. So look closely at the member ID column. The database automatically generated a brand new ID for him, that is 1002. This member ID is generated. Okay. So now look at the bottom. This is our borrowed books table. So this is where the magic happens. This table shows the checkout record for the book Advanced Physics volume. If you look at the member ID column, in this bottom table, it is exactly 1002. So why is this so important? This is absolutely perfect proof that scope underscore identity works exactly like we want it to. So we never manually type the number 1002 into our code. Instead, scope underscore identity automatically caught that brand new ID from the top table, that is this, the exact millisecond it was created, and safely passes down into the bottom table. So we successfully linked Miles Morales to his borrowed book completely, automatically, without any guesswork. So here, in this way, we have seen the example of scope underscore identity. Now here, we can see that our new student, Miles Morales, was successfully registered. So look closely at the member ID column. The database automatically generated a brand new ID for him, that is 1002. This member ID is generated. Okay. So now look at the bottom. This is our borrowed books table. So this is where the magic happens. This table shows the checkout record for the book Advanced Physics volume. If you look at the member ID column, in this bottom table, it is exactly 1002. So why is this so important? This is absolutely perfect proof that scope underscore identity was exactly like we want it to. So we never manually type the number 1002 into our code. Instead, scope underscore identity automatically caught that brand new ID from the top table, that is this, the exact millisecond it was created, and safely passes down into the bottom table. So we successfully linked Miles Morales to his borrowed book completely automatically without any guesswork. So here in this way we have seen the example of scope underscore identity and how it's very useful. And the next one is setted identity, the hidden security log danger. Unbeknownst to the librarian, that means the IT department added a security trigger. So what is trigger? In SQL, a trigger is a special type of store procedure that automatically fires when a specified event occurs in a database table or view. Unlike standard store procedure, you do not call or execute a trigger manually. The database handles execution in response to data changes. So we will see in detail about triggers in upcoming video. So here we are going to use the trigger concept. So every time someone joins the library, a hidden security audit table logs the event and generates its own ID. That means ID 9999. If the librarian uses added identity instead of scope underscore identity, the system will accidentally grab the security logs ID instead of the student's ID and assign the borrowed book to a ghost. So this is why we always use scope underscore identity. So for this example, we are going to create this table library underscore members, and in this table we are going to define the two columns, member ID and its identity and the member name. So let's create this table first. Okay, so we just created this table. So in the next step, create the hidden security audit table. That means ID department's log. So here again we are going to create the another table, that is security audit. Here we are going to define the two columns, log ID, and here is the identity column, and the value is 9999 is the seed value, and it increment by 1. And the log message is where and the storage byte is 100. So let's first create this table. Okay. And in the third step, here we are creating the hidden trigger that runs automatically. Here we are going to define the trigger. So here we create the trigger. How to create the trigger? Create trigger, and this is the trigger name on table name. For this table name, we are going to define this trigger. And what is the trigger action? After inserting the data, we are going to run this code automatically. So create trigger name on library underscore members. Trigger action is after insert as begin end. So as begin end, here we are going to insert into security audit log message, a log message, and the value is new member added to the library. So let's first create this trigger. Okay, our trigger is created. Now the librarian adds a new student. So we are going to insert into library members, and the member name value is John Doe. So let's insert this data. Okay. Here, two rows get affected. Now in the next step, the danger of added identity versus the safety of scope underscore identity. So we are going to select the value from added identity, and here we are going wrong ID grab. That means this will return this ID 9999 from the trigger, and scope underscore identity will return the correct member ID. This will return 1 from the members table. So let's select this data. Okay. So here, this is the wrong ID we are grabbed by using this added identity, and this one is the correct ID. Now, notice the huge difference between the two values in our result grid. So, added identity return 9999 because it got hijacked by the hidden background trigger firing on another table. On the other hand, scope underscore identity safely return 1, which is the actual correct member ID generated for John Doe. So this output visually proves why using added identity is risky and why scope underscore identity is the gold standard for getting the right ID every single time. And the fifth one is ident underscore current, the milestone tracker. So the library is running a promotion. The 5,000 member gets a free bag. The head librarian wants to look at a dashboard to see the highest member ID currently in the system to see how close they are to the goal. So this simply checks the highest ID reached in the table overall. So this is the code select ident underscore current. This is the table name as current highest member ID. Select this data. Okay. So here this current underscore highest member ID is the column name we have created here. Okay. In our result grid, ident underscore current library member display a value of 1002. So unlike the other identity functions, ident underscore current takes a specified table name as an argument and checks its global milestone count. It ignores sessions, scopes, and triggers, simply returning the absolute highest identity value generated in the library members table across the entire database. So this makes it the perfect tool for building tracking dashboards, like checking how close the library is to reaching its 5,000 register member goal. Now here, the last one is the output clause, the family registration. So here, a family of 5 comes into register for library cards all at the same time. The librarian enters all their names and hits submit. Because scope underscore identity can only catch one ID at a time, we need a way to catch all 5 brand new IDs at once. So for this, we are going to create a temporary basket to catch the ID. So here we have declared the variable at the rate family cars, and here we are going to define the table. This is the structure of the table, new member ID and member name. And here the data type is int, and here the data type is varchar. After declaring this variable, we are going to insert the whole family at once and the output their new IDs into the basket table. So here we are going to insert into library members full name from output inserted.member ID inserted.full name into @family cars, and the value is this. Okay. So now after inserting the data, we are going to select all from @family cards. Okay. So let's select this data at once. Okay. So in the result grid, we see all 5 Simpson family members listed alongside their auto-generated IDs ranging from 1003 to 1007. Unlike single value functions, the output clause captures data for multiple rows inserted in a single query. It safely intercepted every newly generated member ID and full name the exact instant they were created in the database. And finally, querying @family underscore cards display the entire batch of newly generated records cleaning in one single table view. So now you're assuming that what is inserted.member ID, what is inserted.full name. So here it means inserted is a pseudo table, a temporary table, internal memory table managed by SQL Server that holds the exact row values being added during the insert operation. So here the inserted.member ID and inserted.full name specify the exact columns to capture out of that temporary memory table the auto-generated member ID and the corresponding full name into @family underscore card variable. So direct SQL Server to collect those captured values and store them straight into the table variable @family cards. This is your temporary basket, allowing you to reuse or query all those fresh IDs later. And that is it. You know the 4 different ways to handle auto-generated IDs in SQL Server. Remember the golden rules. Avoid at identity so you don't get tricked by hidden triggers. Use scope underscore identity as your safe everyday standard. Use indent underscore current when you need to track a table's global milestone. And when you're inserting multiple rows at once, let the output clause do the heavy lifting for you. And guys, if this video saved you from a database headache, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more technical tutorials, and let me know in the comments which of these 4 methods is your favorite. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next session. Till then, stay safe and